So during these meetings, we're having our meeting, anybody that's attending can hear what we're saying, but
Yes.
they can't talk unless they're invited in. Is that how it works?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, you're good.
Good evening, everyone. It is 7 p.m. on August 3rd, the meeting of the Sutton Planning Board, which has been scheduled, and we will start it. And first, I want to read a statement regarding a remotely conducted open meeting. This open meeting of the Sutton Planning Board is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town's website, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. For this meeting, the Planning Board is convening by Zoom teleconference as specified on the legally posted agenda. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and that take care not to quote unquote screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Okay, the first action item we have on here is a 192 Mendon Road, scenic roadway. Mike, would you care to read that, please?
Yes. In accordance with the provisions of Article 15 of the Sutton General Bylaw, Scenic Roadway, the Planning Board will hold a public hearing on the application of Ronald Spokus, Sutton, Mass, for land at 192 Mendon Road. The applicant requests permission to create a break in a stone wall for a new driveway and use the stones from this break to put an existing break in the same wall. The hearing will be held on Monday, August 3rd, 2020 at 7 p.m. This will be a virtual meeting in accordance with orders issued by the governor during the current state of emergency.
Yes, Jen.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add two things. The first thing is the new policy of the town based on some Zoom bombing incidents on different websites. Until an applicant's agenda item comes up, they'll be asked to keep their camera off. And then once their agenda item comes on, if we know who they are, we can turn on the camera or they can turn on the camera at that time. All participants will also come in muted. So that's the current policy on that item. There was something else, but I forgot it already. So hopefully it wasn't that important.
Mr. Spokus, if you could turn on your camera. And please give us your name and address and state what you are doing at this particular 192 Mendon Road. Mr. Spokus, you got to turn on your audio.
There we go. You're good.
You're good.
Okay. You are unmuted by host. Okay.
Yes.
I live at 30 Leland Hill Road, right in town. My wife and I bought a piece of property on 192 Mendon Road. The original developer applied for and was granted a curb cut to move in his machinery to do the perk. So we had house plans drawn up by Summit Engineering. And the way the curb cut is right now, it's directly in my front yard. The garage is about 15 feet to the right of that curb cut. So I'm asking the town if I can reopen up the stone wall 15 feet from where it is right now, and then just utilize those current stones from that opening to close up the existing curb cut. There aren't any trees, according to my builder is Rob Judson, and he said there are not any town trees that need to be cut down. So it's strictly a matter of the stone wall movement and a new driveway opening.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. These are, Jen, these are the pictures
Yes.
of the location.
Yeah, so you see the stakes there highlighted on either side of the new location. As Mr. Spocus noted, there actually was a solid stone wall here, and a few years ago, the then owner applied for an opening to do the clearing and stuff where the Toyota is parked. And now Mr. Spocus, because he has his house plans developed, as you can see on that other plan, if you want to switch back to that, Kyle, wants to close that break that was granted a while back, which you can see there in the picture, and create a new break that lines up with his driveway and garage location. So you can see he's requesting a 15-foot break, so that's pretty consistent with breaks you've granted in the past. And the plan is to fill the existing break with those stones from the new break.
Mr. Chair,
Does anybody, any board members have a
Yeah.
comment?
yes, this is Bob Lardis, and I want to thank Ron for doing it the right way. That's exactly how the bylaw was created, and the stones stay in Sutton, and they actually stay on the property. It makes common sense that you should be able to do this, and I appreciate you doing a good job. So I'm ready to move right now. This isn't a hard one. Everything's done well.
Okay, thank you.
Did any other members have any comments that they want to make? Can someone make a motion to approve this? Oh, I'm sorry, Jen.
Sorry, I'm not good at the raise your hand function on my
Hi, this
computer.
is
If you,
Mike Gagan.
go ahead, Mike.
Jen, I just had a question. You had raised an issue regarding the original sketch not being sufficient. Are the pictures submitted now sufficient? to you?
I did not receive any new materials. That's what I was going to bring up. There was a very quick sketch of what the stone wall might look like. It wasn't technical by any means. And I did not receive any additional photographs of the existing wall. So, you know, if the board chooses to act tonight, they should at least make that conditioned on receiving photographs that are more visible of the existing wall, and just confirmation that you're going to retain that the applicant will retain that same kind of non-mortared, loose rubble stacking style of the existing wall. But we should have much clearer photographs of the existing stone wall configuration at a minimum in the file, so we know whether what's done is consistent.
Well, I can do that, Ms. Hager. It'll require me going back up to the lot. If you looked at picture number 2, it's all overgrown with weeds and vines and things like that. So it will require a little time to cut all those back and then reshoot it. And then I can give you a clearer picture of what those stones look like if that's what the board requires.
It's up to the board.
Scott, do you have a comment?
Yes, I think there's probably some walls in the area on Mendon Road that would be similar to what you're trying to do, that you could probably take pictures of that are not actually on your property. If that's what you want. I think we're trying to do this to avoid any confusion, because we've had people claim one thing and build something that's out of character with the road. So we're trying to avoid that confusion.
Mr. Paul, I spent 8 years on the Dudley Planning Board, so I know how to do things right. And I know about the people who don't do things right too, from my experiences. So I understand exactly where you're coming from.
Good job. Then I'll make a motion that we move on this and submit that the applicant takes pictures of the stones they're going to remove into the empty space so it looks the same as the rest of the stone wall on his property and on Mendon Road. Everybody's clear. Need a
I'll
second.
second that.
Kyle, did you second it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, anybody have any comments on this motion? Hearing none, we will have a vote. Mike,
Mike Gagan, yes.
okay. Bob,
Bob Largis, yes.
Kyle,
Kyle Bergeson, yes.
Scott,
Yay.
Wally Baker, yes. So the motion passes 5-0-0.
Good job.
Hey, thank you, folks.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Nice job
I'll
on the
make-
road
I'll
up there,
make-
too. It was just paved.
Yeah.
The paving company did a great job. It was probably went from one of the worst roads in town to one of the best. It looks real good up there now.
Good.
I was up there yesterday, sir, and I was shocked.
Yeah, it's nice.
I went to inspect your property. I'm saying, my gosh, what happened here?
I know. I'm just hoping that all the heavy equipment with what's going on up there doesn't chew the road up. That's all. There's a lot of development going on, as you know.
Yes.
So hopefully it'll stay intact and look good after all the houses are built too. So,
Oh, good. Okay, then, thank you. We'll move
Thank
on to
you.
the
Okay.
next item here.
Well, Wally, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
Second.
Thanks, Mike. A
You're welcome.
second. Okay. Mike, you would favor? Oh, wait,
Mike
I'm sorry.
Gagan, yes.
Okay, Bob,
Bob Largis, aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Bergeson, aye.
Wally Baker, aye. Okay, so now we will move on to the next item.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, have a good evening.
Yep, good luck with
Thank
your
you.
project. Mike, do you want to read the public hearing notice, please?
Yes. Yep. In accordance with the provisions of the Sutton zoning bylaw, section 4C, site plan review, and 7(8.2) special permits, the planning board will hold a hearing on the application of Leonard Zanotti and Teresa Carnes, 126 Worcester Providence Turnpike, Sutton, Mass. The applicant proposes to use an existing garage at this location for a showroom and storage for assorted hobby projects to be sold by appointment only. This hearing will be held on Monday, August 3rd, 2020 at 7:10 p.m. This will be a virtual meeting in accordance with orders issued by the governor during the current state of emergency.
Hey, thank you. Is the applicant here? Are they available at this point?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Do you want to please sign on and give us your name and your address?
It says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Oh. I don't know where our hosts are. Christine?
Start my
I
video.
just sent
Okay.
her. Thank you.
Okay, there we are.
You're on.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, I'm Teresa Carnes. This is Leonard Zanotti.
How are you tonight?
We're at 126 Worcester Providence Turnpike. There's an existing garage at the bottom of the driveway that we don't use for anything. Len as a hobby, makes wood products, and we have begun to have family, friends, so forth, like want to purchase things for wedding presents, showers, etc. And we've been storing things in the basement and thought it would be nice to utilize that garage for just a showroom, but we both work and we aren't going to man the show. You know, it's not going to be like a store, but we thought if we just had a place where people could call us, want to come look at things, and open the door and let them go into that garage to by appointment only. So,
Oh, Bill, okay. Jen, do you have any comments on this? Oh, good. Thank you, Kyle.
There you go. So Kyle is showing the aerial with the proposal there. You have an existing lot. You have an existing garage closer to Route 146, the house in the middle, and there's a secondary garage now up above. And as Ms. Carnes described, they would establish a handicap spot in front of the lower garage and then have some additional spots up above where you see the gravel. And I believe she submitted, might have submitted one or two other drawings and photographs of the structure. So you can kind of see where that would be located. I don't know if you have those, Kyle, if you can poke around.
Yeah, we have them in our folder.
Signage. Oh, that's
This is-
kind of,
And this is just below the Sutton Drive-In.
no, this is a little bit farther south. It's next to John's Auto, I believe.
yeah,
Right to that is Sutton. I'm familiar.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so that's John's Auto there on the right in that last photo, and then this use would be to the left. And
we did have some photos of the shop too. I don't know if,
Yep.
yeah,
I have them in my folder. There
okay,
you go.
there's the sign.
sure why those are. Oh, there you go. That's looking up the driveway to the new garage. That's the one you're talking about there on the,
Right.
you have a sign out on the roadway. So that's the front of the building.
Okay.
Right, so you'd have the handicap spot right in front of that,
Right,
right in front of that.
and it's flat there.
Very, it looks, or appears to be.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the interior?
Yeah, minus the couch.
A very nice little space.
Yeah.
All right. So I believe there were minimal departmental comments. Looking through the file right now.
The building inspector had one.
The building commissioner wanted to make sure that everything was code compliant. So no matter how the board acts on this, they should obviously make sure that, you know, prior to any occupancy or use, that everything has to be approved by the building commissioner at a minimum. So he did say, I have the following concerns: parking and access must be compliant with the architectural access code. The slope on the hill will need to be addressed, as well as the entrance to the structure. And that would be from that handicap parking spot into that building. So, so you just need to, you'll need to go to his office and show him where you intend to put and sign the handicap parking and what the access path would be for somebody in that spot then into the building. The fire department didn't have any comments at that time, but you will have to receive from them any permits that are required. And then no taxes were due on the property. That's all I had for departmental comments. And then this is technically a site plan hearing. So you really need to grant, at a minimum, a blanket waiver from the normal requirements to submit engineered drawings with all of the landscape plans and drainage and the like, because it's my understanding from the Carnes is that nothing is proposed to change other than locating a sign, a business sign, and the ADA signage that's required by the building commissioner.
Any do any board members have any comment on this?
So, Scott Paul. So I think that the difficulty here is this is a business highway use. This is a residential location in the business highway use. And waiving and relaxing and wavering everything that we typically look for in site plan, I find a little difficult. Part of me says that this is a friendly, you call up, I'd like to see a couple things today. So why not have house visitors that can look at things that you have, that you've made, and can then talk with them. But it's a difficult site for a business. And I'd hate to see something go wrong because we've waived all this stuff and someone gets whacked on the side of that road, pulling into this location or pulling out of this location. I think it's difficult.
What would be the difference if they came up to our house?
No, that's so. The other side of me is saying just do it that way.
Yeah, but the thing is, like,
Pretty
we're
unofficial
paying
advice, however.
taxes, we're paying electrical, you know, for that building. And it's part of what we paid for, you know what I mean? And it's empty.
You pay for a residential property.
Yeah, but
Right.
that,
That's what it is. It's a residential property that is located in a business highway zone.
Yeah, I mean, as I talked to Ms. Carnes originally about this, it's a really tough one because, as you can see from my review memo, if this weren't located in the B2 district, they would be going to the Zoning Board of Appeals. They'd be getting a permit for a home business, and that would be that. But because it's located in the B2 district, that use is not allowed in this district. So they had really no choice through the building commissioner's opinion and to apply for two permits, a special permit for retail sales, as well as site plan approval, just to, you know, review the parking location and the access location, all the other things that are required through site plan review. So it is a different animal. It's completely different than I think anything we've ever seen. So yeah, I mean, it definitely puts the members in a unique position because you have always been a board to be extremely consistent in the way you review uses in any district. But this is a different animal, that's for certain.
This is Bob Largus, and
Hi, Bob.
I recognize that it's an unusual animal, but I like it. And first of all, as a board member, I appreciate you people coming, trying to go through the process, because you could be doing this on the internet and I'd never meet you. So you try to do everything you can in all of our rules and regulation, but you have to recognize as a board member, this has a ripple effect. And I'm of the opinion that if this business became so busy that you were coming out, you got too big real fast, then we'd have to revisit this business. But at this point, it's a home business. I don't want your
hobbyist. I'm 63.
I don't want your house to be approved as at residential tax as opposed to residential, because you're gonna get whacked for that. But it is a business, I recognize that, so I wrestle with it. And I appreciate the fact that you came in and we have this discussion, whatever the board decides. But someone who's chooses to live on 146 in a road that has changed so much over the past 40 to 50 years, it's an interstate highway. And it's a challenging place. I can remember being opposed to all the ideas about 146 and the traffic light. I thought all the ideas were wrong. And I remember being in a public hearing in Millbury with Mass Highway saying that I could fix an intersection so easy with 4 Jersey barriers and have no lights, send everyone down a Central Turnpike, and they can go right to Central Turnpike and go north. I thought it was brilliant. The Mass Highway people enlightened me. Everyone will be going 55 miles an hour on 146. They might pull into your driveway, but you'll never be able to pull out. That's why the light had to be where it is in the intersection, had to be fixed. So I was corrected, and it works. So I find myself in that same seat where your driveway is never easy for you to come out of.
Does it make any difference that our driveway is actually out of John's Auto? It's not. We pull into John's Auto and then pull from John's Auto to 146.
No, it's just the whole idea that if you're 146, this would be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
The fact that you're on an interstate highway makes a challenge for us as a planning board to do something smart. There are other people on 146 who might have property, your neighbors, who still have houses on 146. They might want to do 3 or 4 of them want to do that. And it has to have a repercussion for us as a board. But personally, just do it. You should do just fine.
We understand, but this is by appointment only, sir, and we
Yeah.
won't have any traffic. I'm gonna be retired and it's just a hobby.
Okay.
So from a safety standpoint, do you probably always pull out front ways onto 146?
Correct,
Would people coming to see you be able to do the same?
correct.
They can just do a,
We loop around in John's
Right
and
there, but
pull
at
out
the garage.
kind of parallel to 140.
Couldn't get out of your driveway otherwise.
yeah.
Right.
Oh. Does anybody else have any comments? Do we ask now for people in the video world? Or do we wait for a motion?
No, I would ask for any public comment that might be out there.
Okay. Does anybody out in the video world have any comments on this particular situation?
You could unmute yourself
Mhm.
or raise your hand using the little blue raise your hand little thing. I'm just going down the list.
Oh, okay.
This is Mr. Windle. I believe this is Mr. Burns. I don't know who that is. So yeah, I don't necessarily see anybody else that's here for this issue.
Okay.
We have 2 items before the board. The first one is the special permit for retail. So you're deciding whether you think a retail use, and in this case, this specific retail use that has been proposed, which is in a by appointment only woodworking gift business, is appropriate at this location. That's just the use permit, and that you would go through the 5 special permit criteria. You see those listed in my memo to the board. And then the second part of this is site plan approval. I did call out that we don't have a formal list of waiver requests from the applicant because I assume because there were so many that were needed, because what has been presented is really just kind of a sketch drawing on top of the aerial. as opposed to a more engineered drawing or technical drawing that we typically see. And this is an existing site with existing buildings and uses.
Mhm.
So the board just needs to decide if they feel comfortable acting on one or both of those, or if they want more detailed or different type of mapping or materials from the applicant. If they do, I certainly could help the applicant by showing them samples of what something like that might look like, but that's up to the board. And of course, because this is a special permit, in accordance with the site plan review as well, the board has the ability to tightly control the potential use. So the board could say they are allowing a special permit for the retail use, but that retail use would be limited to, no more than 2 clients at a time, by appointment only.
Mhm.
If anything changed, they have to reapply and go through another hearing. You can be very, very tight in how you define what would happen here in accordance with what the applicant is telling you.
Okay.
Would
So
would
you
also,
do have that.
would also be worthwhile, I mean, John Kuchar is a good man. He does a good job. You're a taxpayer in Sutton, so he works for you. And it is an unusual situation, and maybe he could help you in crafting something that would somehow get this round peg into this square hole of a property owner coming forward with a very small appointment only business on 146. Because we want him to do his job too. He might have some insight that I can't share with right now, that I can't see anything. I'd like to see it happen.
I'm
Obviously, I
sorry,
did.
he's John
Kuchar?
Kuchar,
Mhm.
and he is,
The building commissioner.
okay.
I believe you have spoke to him briefly, and
Yeah.
I
Yep.
did talk to him briefly about this as well, and it was the 2 of us together and more him as the zoning enforcement officer that said, gosh, it looks like a home business, it smells like a home business, but there's no way for me to allow occupancy as a home business. It's not an allowed use in this district. So John was the one that kind of popped them in our direction, because again, in terms of consistency, he saw no choice but to do that. Outside of that, and the cautionary he gave on making sure that we could fulfill the ADA, American with Disabilities Act provisions of the building code, and the applicant could fulfill those. John is definitely not one for designing somebody's site for them. He
Yeah,
won't get into that.
he can't.
No, so he certainly, would potentially look at the spot in front of the door and how you propose to get anybody who's handicapped into the building and say, yep, that's compliant. No, that's not compliant. And you would need that anyways before he allowed you to use the space. But beyond that, I don't know that he's certainly not gonna help anybody draw up any more detailed plans or anything like that. That's not within his purview. So you just need to decide whether what you have is formal enough, whether you want something more formal, whether you want a written list of detailed waivers, whether you're comfortable voting that a use as you specifically define it is allowed is appropriate at the location or not, or you can vote both. You can vote one and not the other. If you're not, or you can just deny the use, in which case you need to state specifically why you're denying the application. What is your pleasure, board?
Does someone want to make a motion with or without conditions?
Yeah, you always go with the special permit vote first, and you need to
Okay.
make those 5 findings before you take a vote. So there is a memo from me, and it starts with finding that the appropriateness of the specific site as a location for this use. That's the first thing you need to find. Do you think this location is appropriate for a limited retail use? second is the adequacy of sewerage and water. So to the applicant, how, is there going to be a separate bathroom in this facility?
No.
There'll be no bathroom, no, nothing like that. It's
All
just a
right.
garage or showroom.
And you've had no existing issues with your private septic or well?
Right, no issues.
The
We did.
effective,
We got a Title V last June because we moved in last June.
oh, Title V last June. Okay.
Is that it?
Then
Pardon
you,
me?
So, Mr. Chairperson, if I make a motion that we, and make a motion to move on this, I guess we get a second how it works, and then the board can have a discussion and we can have a vote. And then if the majority can say no, and then it's done for now. If it's yes, then we still have to wrestle with Mr. Kuchar, and how do we put a business that is not supposed to be here? That's a tough one for us with the planning board. Yeah,
Do you have another suggestion on
I don't,
how we, like, can't this man have a hobby on his own and sell the items?
yep.
So how, we just can't put them in our garage?
being so quiet. Do we want to run through the special permit? Because we need to run through the special permit
Right.
criteria, because if you get hung up on any of those criteria, that would be your reasoning for, that would show what the board is sticking on, kind of what they're sticking on as a base reason. And then we could talk about site plan criteria. If there's no base reason that's an issue, we can talk about the specific site plan criteria. And again, that will flush out where the board is having issues with this potential use. And it may just be, some discomfort with, the type of plans that are presented and not, it could just be that. But it would be my suggestion to kind of move this along, that we look at the special permit criteria, because the board has to decide that the use is appropriate at this location before they can even consider the details of the site plan. And although some of that is kind of intertwined. So, Mr. Chairman, are you okay with going through each of the special permit criteria? Is the board okay with going through those and having a brief discussion about each of those?
Yes.
Yes, so I think we need to do that because we didn't get through the list the last time here.
All right, so the first criteria in order to grant a special permit is finding that this specific site is appropriate for this specific use as the applicant has described it. So the appropriateness of this specific site as a location for this specific use. So, did the board?
It
Go ahead.
seems appropriate for the use to show handcrafted wood carvings and such in that building. It seems to be the right kind of building, has the right look to it for that kind of use, I would say.
And it's zoned correctly. You are in the business district.
Oh, it's in a business shop.
Appropriate. Does anybody else have anything else to say about that?
Oh,
No. Okay. So the second finding that must be made is the adequacy of sewer and water. You've just heard from the applicant that there will not be a bathroom in this garage. It'll be up to the building commissioner whether that's code compliant or not. But right now there is no bathroom proposed to be in this garage, and they had a Title V review last June that passed and have otherwise had no issues.
So I assume that to have an operating facility like this, people have to be able to go to the bathroom when they're visiting, or is that if you're making an appointment, you could be told, don't come here, I need to go to the bathroom.
I honestly don't know. That's definitely a code issue.
So it's not suitable, it's not adequate from that perspective.
Correct. And if it's not handicapped accessible, that's another can of worms that we're very familiar with.
Okay, so you have a question in criteria 2, whether not having a bathroom is
It's
code compliant. Okay.
Business has to have an accessible bath.
Yeah, so we're gonna, and ADA accessibility. All right, the effect of the developed use upon the neighborhood. So do you think that the business as described would have a deleterious effect on the neighborhood in terms of traffic or anything like that?
I do not.
I agree.
Okay, number 4, whether there will be an undue nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians as described.
That's one of my concerns, coming out of this facility in the wrong direction, backwards, backing out, taking a left. For people that
So,
aren't familiar, the residents that live there know how to get out of the highway.
Tony's Pizza, John's Automotive, there's several businesses on the street already and right next to us, and nobody goes the wrong way. They pull out and head south.
I think probably where we would go on that is those businesses have all had very detailed approved site plans that show how traffic flows on the site.
Understood. Yep.
Yeah, so so that might just be a matter of showing on the plan exactly like traffic flow, which is one of the required components of a site plan that isn't on these plans. So you have some discomfort with the flow of traffic, safe flow of traffic. And part of that, I think, is complicated by the fact that the driveway does actually exit kind of over the corner of John's Auto. Does John's Auto know that the
Oh, yeah.
property? I mean, it looks like the majority of it's in the right of way to Route 146, but.
Right.
All right. And they don't have any issues? They know what you're talking about or anything?
We discussed it with John. He's a pretty good guy.
John, no issues? Good.
Good.
And then 5 is whether adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided to ensure the proper operation of the proposed use, structure, and condition, which is our catch-all condition. And that's where will you be able to meet ADA standards and the like comes in. So it sounds like just by discussing these 5 criteria that the board would be more comfortable moving forward on this if they had an answer to the question of whether a bathroom would actually be required for this use per building code, whether
Could they use the bathroom up at our house?
again, that might be a code issue. You might be required per building code, which we're not experts on, only John Kuchar is an expert on, to have one closer or something like that. So if the board knew that, if the building commissioner could say to us, no, how they proposed it, they don't need a bathroom, we're good to go. And likewise with the handicap spot and access from the spot into the building, that is fine. It sounds like the board would have some more comfort level voting to approve the use. Is that what I'm hearing from the majority of the board members?
Yep. Yes.
And is there anything other than my working with the applicant on waiver requests, which is not a hard thing, I can work with them on that. Is there anything you want to see on the plans or any different type of plan you want to see for you to move forward on the use from a site plan approval perspective? Site plans they're usually engineered, which we wouldn't necessarily do in this case for an existing site, but they're still usually very, I would show you one for Manny's across the street, but that wasn't an engineered plan, but it was very precise, laid out the parking to dimension. It was extremely neat and done through program like Adobe or a program you get on your computer.
But for the few spots on 146 that residents live on, if they have a hobby and they want to open up by appointment a business at their house, they're going to have to say yes to everybody. And that, I mean, it has to have, we have to be consistent, because there are other neighbors that are in the same situation on 146. They might have a hobby and want to have a business. So we have to act as a board, unfortunately, and think about the ripple. Because if we say yes, everyone else can say yes too.
Mhm.
Well, and I don't know, only you can decide whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
You guys know the highway. My
Yeah.
question from an administrative perspective is, and trying to help the applicant through the process is, other than needing to kind of go back and have a conversation with the building commissioner about the bathroom question and the ADA access question, is there anything else you want me to help this applicant provide to you before you would be comfortable acting on this application?
What about the public safety? I know the people that live there know how to get out of there, but say somebody, just drops in, I know people get confused, they could back out. That would not be a good thing.
You
To get on
wouldn't
146,
back.
somehow they've got to either be specifically told, or there's got to be some sign or something to make sure they're, doing it what I call properly.
So their proposal is to have signage, but to have signage that says very clearly by appointment only.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
is that enough to make you comfortable? I mean, I guess if you're driving down 146 right now, you probably wouldn't accidentally pull into this driveway, but there are some driveways. I'm thinking of the house just past Burnap Industrial Park, where somebody might pull in because they missed Burnap Industrial Park and they're like flustered and they pull into that little driveway. There's got to be occasions where a random person pulls into a constricted site and has to use some common sense to get back out. But in terms of their customers, do you just want to see on the site plan kind of how it would be obvious for somebody who pulled into the site to kind of turn around and get back out front ways out?
Forward direction.
In a forward door. When you pull in now, you just pull into your garage and then kind of back out and flip in the gravel area?
We pull all the way to the top of the driveway, pull in the garage, back out and turn around.
Right, so if somebody came onto your site, could they, without pulling into your garage, can they pull into an area and back out, or do they have
More
to
than enough
then-
room. More than enough
Plenty
room.
of
Okay.
room.
Okay,
All right, so
thank you.
so we would need to show, as required by site plan review, that kind of vehicle movement path. So the
Mhm.
board can see and maybe require even just some very nice woodworked signage that shows kind of a,
Mhm.
do not exit, do not back out, turn ahead or something.
Right turn only, sure.
Yeah.
Reverse direction ahead in your driveway or something.
Jen?
I
Yes.
mean, also, whenever we have somebody coming to the house, not for the woodworking, but just guests or whatever, we're very clear about, we're out of John's Automotive. I mean, we would be able to verbalize what we wanted to say because they're calling for an
Right.
appointment.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes you feel comfortable,
Good
but
point. Yeah, that's a good point.
It is a good point.
Wally?
Yes, Michael.
Yeah, I just want to add, I think it's important as we craft this, if we move ahead, that it's very limited to appointment only. Because it seems that it's one thing if it's family and friends showing up to buy some items, but if you have a sign, you might be attracting more people to show up. And I think if it grew to a bigger business, which it might, if it's successful, it would, probably need another type of permit to go ahead with that, because that could really change the use from a very limited family and friends showing up to
Appointment
buy
only.
an item.
Mhm.
So I would suggest that we continue this public hearing and I think Jen understands some of the concerns and can work with the applicant on these special permit issues and towards getting a more definitive site plan drawing or layout or whatever we need to review this more carefully before making a decision.
Okay, Good job.
I agree.
We have an agenda we have to attend to.
Do we have to vote on that?
Yes, you need to make a motion to continue. Your next meeting is 8:17 and the first spot is still open, so they could be on at 7 PM.
It's Scott was a motion. I'll be the second.
Make a motion to extend this public hearing until, what is that, August 17th at 7:10.
Second.
No, it's 7
Well-
o'clock.
Oh, 7 o'clock.
Any board members have any comments on this?
No.
Anybody out there in our visual audio world have any comments on this?
I do not see any hands.
Hearing
being
none.
raised.
I'm sorry, Kyle?
Don't see anything being raised by the audience.
Oh, good. Okay, Kyle, we'll start with you.
Kyle Bergeson, aye.
Okay, Scott,
Aye.
Bob,
Bob Largus, aye.
Mike,
Mike Gagan, aye.
Wally Baker, aye.
And you don't have to ask for Bill's vote because he's acting in associate. He can act as a full member, but we don't need him to chime in on the votes.
Oh, I'm
Sorry, Bill.
Okay.
That's okay.
All right.
We value you equally regardless.
All right, so the vote is 5-0,
All right.
0.
So Teresa, you guys, why don't you give me a call tomorrow or Wednesday, and I can, maybe we'll plan an outdoor meeting on the common and kind of walk through some stuff.
Mhm.
And we'll, you probably should give a call to the building commissioner's office tomorrow and see when you can meet with him. And I'm happy to meet with him with you if you
Okay.
kind of want to go between.
Mhm.
Because you need to get some answers from him on building code and whether that requires bathrooms for this kind of use, and where you were thinking about for the ADA parking spot and whether there's any code issues with that particular location.
Okay,
Okay?
very good.
Thank you for taking the time and spending it with us
Thanks.
tonight.
Thank you for
appreciate it.
coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Wally, I'll
Yes.
make a motion to close this public hearing.
No, we had a motion to continue. That's all we need.
You got, okay.
so I guess I'm sorry, the next item up here is the Form A plans for Putnam Hill Road and Manchog Road.
I think we have Byron Andrews present. Byron,
I saw him up there a minute ago.
there he is.
Good evening. So I'm representing TJJ Development tonight. TJJ Development owns I don't know if it's better to point to the one in back of me or if there's something that Jen can put on. But TJJ Development owns a large irregularly shaped lot in Manchog with frontage on Putnam Hill Road and also some frontage on Manchog Road. It contains the Manchog Post Office.
Oh, okay.
The reason for the irregularity of the lot is because it was created back in the 1930s from mill land where they sold out other parcels around it and retained that. So what we're seeking to do is to separate that land into 3 parcels. And also there's town land, which is to the lower left-hand corner or to the south west. And we also propose to separate a small portion of the town land. The point of it is we want to create 2 buildable lots and another non-buildable parcel. So the northern end of the land would become Lot 1. Lot 1 has access onto Putnam Hill Road through the area shown as a right-of-way.
Mhm.
They do own the fee under that right-of-way. They own that land. They do have actual frontage. That lot has been granted a frontage and width waiver from the zoning board. So that would be a buildable lot. Just to the south of that is parcel 2. Parcel 2 would be conveyed to the town and, pardon me, would be conveyed to the town and used along with the other part of the town land. It would have access through a separate right-of-way from Putnam Hill Road from the other town land on Manchog Road. And there would also be a pedestrian and emergency access easement across the third lot we are creating, which is the rectangular portion around the post office, which consists of parcel 3, which is owned by TJJ, and parcel 4, which is owned by the town. The reason why we are including that small town parcel is both to have the parking for the post office be on the post office lot, which it presently is not, and also to make the lot conforming with the village zone. So lot 2, I believe, lot 2, which would be parcels 3 and 4, will be as a lot in the village zone, conforming with the village zone requirements. And lot 1, and actually I think on this illustration here is shown as parcel 1, but on the revised plan it is shown as lot 1. Lot 1 will conform with the zoning requirements for the, I'm just looking to see what zone it's in, residential rural zone, except for the frontage and width, for which they have a waiver.
All right.
I'm having a hard time. I see parcel 1 because it's so small.
Here, there is an updated one, so let me just,
I'm trying to find the third parcel.
just zoom in on that, just a sec.
Yeah, make it larger.
Yep, I'm gonna share my screen in a sec, and then I'll go to the revised plan. Okay, so let me just screen share. Oh, my host disabled participant screen sharing. Can we share me again?
Yeah, we just need to make you a co-host again. You left.
Oh yeah, I accidentally left. I don't even know how I left, but I did.
I think to do that, there we go.
And now I just gotta find it. I think it's this one. It's that one, share. Okay, now let's zoom. Okay, so you can see way up top here, let me just scroll a bit. Way up here on top is what is now lot 1. That is the lot that the Zoning Board of Appeals gave a frontage and width variance for. So that will be a single family house lot in the village district. The next parcel down, parcel 2, that Byron talked about, is going to be transferred to the town and held in common, or not, doesn't matter. It's not a building lot. There will be a public park on that, hopefully someday soon. But it does directly abut the fire station parcel, which is over here. And then as we scale down, and we're now zoomed in, you can see nice and clearly now, parcel 3, which is the existing post office lot. Oops, sorry there. And parcel 4, which is the lot that town meeting voted to transfer to TJJ in exchange for parcel 2, the park lot. So you're taking a kind of a pre-existing non-conforming lot, you're creating one conforming lot, you're conveying the center out to combine it with a conforming lot, and then you'll still end up with just one non-conforming lot in a different configuration that has the appropriate variance in the north. So, so this is all clean. All the variances that are necessary have been granted. Town meeting action has been made to transfer out parcel 4. So you just need to approve the Form A, but we will hold the Form A because first off, the town manager needs to sign the application, which he did not do yet. And we don't want this plan recorded until the actual transfer documents get recorded with it. So you don't want a plan on file that shows a transfer of land without the accompanying deed. So it's all set for the board to approve the Form A.
I'll make a motion for the Form A plan for Putnam Hill Road and Manchog Road that Jen just described.
Right. And then just condition that on, please, holding it for the town manager's
Right.
signature
Right.
on the application and no filing until the other docs go with it.
That is my motion.
I'll
Thank you.
second that.
Oh,
Awesome.
good. Okay, good. Does any board member have any comments on this?
I have a comment. This right of way that's been approved by the ZBA that's up by Snow Street here.
Yep.
Is about 20 feet wide.
Yes, it is. You should have sat through those public hearings. They were a lot of fun. Basically, the premise for the zoning board granting this was that frontage has existed since prior to 1920. And it was used, that access was used. There are actually two posts right here and right here for access into the Manchog Mill complex that used to sit here on these lots. That access has existed exactly as you see it and was used from the late early 1900s. Nothing has changed in terms of the configuration of the lot other than back in the 1930s or 40s, this Mercier parcel, the Picard parcel, was divided out and actually not utilized, and that may get transferred back to the town as well. Basically, the board was ruling on whether they were creating new nonconformities in effect. And what they said basically, or what they decided in the long run, and what was very well argued by Attorney Napick for the applicant, was that not only are they not creating any new nonconformities because this frontage has existed throughout time and been utilized throughout time, but as was the same with this right-of-way right here, this 12-foot right-of-way, and lesser frontage here on the post office lot. So not only are they not creating a new nonconformity, but they're allowing one conforming lot to be created and improved, a second parcel to be combined with a conforming lot, making an even larger conforming lot. And their result, the net result, is again just one non-conforming lot with frontage and width that has not been changed since the 1920s. So there was a lot behind that, and it was very unique, and they made a lot of findings about how unique it is to this specific lot, and how the fact that you physically cannot get from this bigger frontage down here up to this big buildable part of the lot up here because of the canals from the mills and the terrain, and so topographical hardships, wetland hardships. They really tagged a lot of the hardships that are required for grant of a variance, unlike a lot of other applications you might see in front of a zoning board of appeals. So the applicants worked very hard. The zoning board took 2 or 3 different hearing nights to really pull this apart. And despite the narrow width of that, it's more than adequate for a single family driveway. And it's the same exact access as has been there and been utilized since the 1920s, or earlier, frankly, the late 1800s.
Well, that's good. So this is an existing lot. There's no more approvals necessary to build a home then on that lot.
No, I mean, they'll probably need to go to the Conservation Commission depending on the placement of the lot, because the old mill ponds are down here in this area. And this existing retaining wall you see on the drawing is the actual cut granite block wall for the canal that comes into the back of Mill 2. This corner right here is the actual final swing of the canal. It's still in the ground there as it swung into the back of Mill 2. So it's a pretty awesome site, and I hope that to be one of my swan song before retirement projects of a beautiful historic park on that Mill 2 site. So you can really highlight the really special village you have down there.
Scott, I've been in there and a few years ago, we're doing a situation for the Historical Commission, and it was just amazing to see those columns. We were just astounded. Oh, you go in there, and all of a sudden, here are these big stone columns, totally unexpected. And there's certainly a lot of historical items in there. You still have the big drain. Well, it's not a drain, but where the power for the mill came through. It's like 6 feet. You can imagine. Just fascinating to me that everything, as she points out, everything is there, and now the town owns it. So hopefully one of these days something can be done with it.
There's actually 2 sets of those columns that say Manchog Mills on them, and they're right here on this right of way at this point. There's a set, and then up there on that northern lot, right there at those 2 points, there's a set. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I could go on for hours, but we want this meeting to go
we
short.
want to get going. Okay, so I guess it's time for the vote, right?
Well, we
Okay.
have a motion. I have a motion to approve, but hold for the town manager's signature and filing with other transfer documents. I did not get a second on that, though.
I'll second that. Kyle Bergerson.
Kyle Bergerson will second it. Any more conversation on this? Hearing none, Wally Baker votes yes. Bob Lodge, yes. You gotta turn your speaker on. Scott Paul,
Yes.
Mike Gagan,
Mike Gagan, yes.
Kyle Bergerson.
Kyle Bergerson, yes.
Bob, Bob's gotta turn his speaker on, or can we turn it on for him?
I just asked him to unmute. I can't do more than that, I don't think.
Yeah, all we can do is ask.
Well,
There's a little microphone with a red line through it. If you can just click on that, you'll be able to talk, or we'll be able to hear you again. Oh, I'm sorry. You can't see the red microphone because you're colorblind. Sorry. There's a microphone with a line through it. Just click on it. Or just shake your head yes if you're in favor. Put your thumb up.
yes.
Yay, you're there. All right, Bob.
Okay, Bob.
He's back.
Bob, do you
I'm trying.
vote yes, Bob?
Okay, yes.
Good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Vote passes 5-0-0. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to be mean to anybody who's here for potential bylaw discussion, but that one might run a little bit. Perhaps we could take the 2 other additional action items first.
Yes.
that was going to be my recommendation. Okay, so why don't we do the 219 Whitens Road?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Windle here?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay, let me screen share. Try to here. Hold on. Here I go.
Like that.
Okay, share. Okay. What you see on the screen is the tenant map for 219 Whitens Road. You had asked me to check out and make sure we had enough parking for everything that was going on down there. So what we see here are originally there were, I believe, 9 spaces. And the first 2 are the ceramic coating contractor. Then we have Power Serve Technologies, the metal roofing guy, United Machining, and then the 2 spaces for the forensic engineering. And then you have 2 vacant spaces. I have labeled the parking spaces for the businesses that will use those spots. Each business has a space right in front, as well as up to 4, I think, Chris, right, total per their leases. Ceramic coatings would actually require like 11 or 12 per the bylaws, but the reality is there's no way they would ever use more than 4 at a time because of the nature of their business. To just bring in a product or a portion of a vehicle or something to ceramic coat, basically. So as you can see by this drawing, you have well more than enough for what's there and potentially for 2 additional tenants. So Chris, if you can just explain the new tenant you'd like to entertain.
Okay. The new applicant would be Mike Fields. He does transportation for the building trades, and he was inquiring about storing his truck, and that's really about it. We felt that he could fit under the table as a building contractor, but I guess transportation, of the building materials is kind of what would have to be discussed, as opposed to kind of the trucking end. I think Jen can maybe help us through this a little bit.
It's my understanding, and I do have the application up on the screen, that Mike works with different builders and different landscape contractors to just bring them materials, to bring them landscape block, or to bring them things they need on their building sites. So he would tuck his truck in here and maybe temporarily store some of the stuff he's hauling to different building or landscape contractors. But other than that, that's what would be here, his truck and what he may be transporting. And then he's just loads stuff up, leaves the site, brings things to different building or landscaping sites, comes back and parks his truck. And Chris, I believe he was going to park it in the bay too, right? It
Yeah,
wasn't
inside.
wasn't even out on the site. So the weird thing about this is he is not a builder himself. He just works with builders and landscapers. So the question is, does that fit within the special permits you granted for this site? Are you comfortable with that or not?
Does anybody have any comments on this at this point?
If Mr. Fields apparently owns an 18-wheeler, he hires out to
No,
people.
it's not an 18-wheeler.
What is it?
Chris?
A dump truck?
Yeah, he's got a trailer dump, and he also has a flatbed on a trailer. It's not as big as you would, consider like a 53-foot like truck you'd see on the highway.
And it just gets fit. It just goes into this garage, and the door comes down, and no one sees it.
Yep, and that's it.
And he turns it on and drives off the site. There's
Yep.
no time. Yeah. Sounds pretty simple to me.
Yeah.
And good use of the property.
Yeah, no employees. It would be a low impact for parking as well.
And his typical hours of operation?
Like 7 to 4.
Monday through Friday?
Yeah.
Does he do some Saturdays?
I believe so, yes. Probably like 7 to noon.
So, are you comfortable that this fits in the special permits you granted? One of those was building and landscape contractor yard. Like I said, he is not a builder or landscaper himself, but he works with them. That's what he does. He gets them their stuff.
Seems as
All's bouncing in your court.
Chris, did you want to say something?
No, I mean, I think it's been said. I think it's a good fit for the space, with the other tenants that are in there. And I think there's very similar uses that are in that zoning. The same zoning as the Sutton Industrial Park, and every business there has some sort of trucking go along with the business uses. So.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say that I do think it certainly seems to fit within that usage, and that's the field he's in. The only concern I would have is how much is potentially stored there. You know, sometimes when some materials might be stored there, but that grow to a bigger amount, rather than just a truck with materials on top leaving.
There's really not much stored in the building. I think we discussed as on occasion if a truck was loaded, if it had some block on it for a delivery the next day or something like that, to that effect.
You
And
can,
it's to my understanding, those blocks will be on the truck, just packed in the garage.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
not getting loaded in the garage.
No.
There's material
Nope.
being loaded in this garage. It's just going to be on the truck to go out the next day. There'll be no.
Correct.
you are being requested to waive site plan review, so as part of that, you can condition a waiver so that you can state there will be no outdoor storage of materials and the tenant will not occupy more than the 4 lease spaces that that is part of their lease or whatever. So you can be very specific about that.
Nothing left in the park up in the morning, that stuff. No. Being
Bill, do you
efficient.
have any comments? No.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, do you have any comments on this?
You asking me, Wally?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. My feeling is, even though he isn't a landscape contractor, if you didn't know that, you would probably think he was just by the activity that he does. So I think it falls within that purview.
Yeah, I would agree. Kyle?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. No comment.
Okay, Scott?
Yeah, I agree with what's been stated.
Yeah, I agree with what's been stated. Now, can I ask for comments, or do we have to make a motion?
You just need a motion to waive site plan review and place any conditions that you feel are appropriate. Obviously, you always want to include the approval of all other departments, boards,
Oh,
and
yeah.
commissions.
I'll make that motion, and the special note is that the materials are going to be on the truck, in the garage, locked, and leaves the next day. In other words, there's no material being stored there on the floor of the garage.
Do you care if he actually has stuff stored in the garage as long as it's in the garage?
Not loom, not blocks. How's he gonna get his truck in if he could do that? Or his trailer?
He's got 4 parking spaces, so, you know. Okay, so no outdoor storage, and what's inside should be on a vehicle.
We have a second.
Motion.
I'll second that motion, Kyle Bergeson.
Kyle Ferguson, okay. Do we have any comments from our video audio group?
Need public comment, please.
Public comments, I'm sorry.
Please unmute yourself or raise your hand if you have any comments on this.
Not seeing anything, John.
Nothing? Okay, do any board members want to make any additional comments?
All for a vote.
I don't think I understand why he can't take stuff off the truck and put it inside the building that he's renting and has plenty of space to do so. What if that load goes out next week and needs to drive out tomorrow and get some other stuff? So I don't quite understand that. Can't store it outside, but if it's inside the building, I don't see what the problem is.
I went with 2 or 3 I want to end up with customers who, for some reason or not, they get their stuff delivered to them. So now they have 2 or 3 loads of materials. We don't know what it is. And then they decide they don't want it anymore. Now it's got to be moved. It's got to be clean use of the space of the garage, basically.
would you be okay if it's just not hazmat?
I was gonna say, it would depend on the material. You don't want flammable, combustible materials being stored in the garage, of course. Building materials, stone, loom.
Yeah, I don't really think we're gonna have an issue with that. It's mostly just a place to come and go from.
You're fine with the way Bob worded the condition that supplies not be stored outside, and if they're inside, they're on the truck? Or you would be more comfortable if supplies can just not be outdoors and no interior supplies? You can't have any hazmat materials. Or
Yeah, that's fine.
Flammable materials inside.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So Kyle, you seconded it, and Bob, you made that motion, so you have to agree if you want to make that adjustment.
I agree.
Yep, I agree as well. I have a second.
Okay, so no hazardous or flammable stuff stored in that building.
Okay.
Okay,
Then we'll have a vote. The chair votes yes. Mike? Oh, you're just turn on, okay.
Yep, Mike Gagan, yes.
Kyle?
Kyle Bergeson, yes.
Bob?
Bob Largis, yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Okay, the resolution passes 5-0-0.
hey,
Okay.
all right.
Thank you.
Good night, Chris.
Thank you for your time.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
All right,
Okay,
so hopefully
Now
we
we do
can.
the villas.
Villas.
Phase 3.
All right, so per your last vote on this subject, you had said that your motion read that you would reduce the bond back down to Graves's estimate with contingency based on the rest of the site work that's need to be done. I think it's about 19,000 total. Once we receive proof that the easement for emergency access over the adjacent property is in hand. So what I provided to you in your file is the recorded easement agreement to allow the emergency access to go over the adjacent property at Wedgewood. So, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with that. I did also provide you with some concerns through Tim Vanderlinden that they had with some site issues with grass not taking and some kind of rocky kind of stuff being left along the golf course. I did mention to Mr. Vanderlinden that generally what the board has surety on is slopes and areas directly adjacent to infrastructure. Although I believe some of this, Mr. Vanderlinden said might be in that earth removal area. You'll remember you allowed them to remove about 3,000 cubic yards of loam from the site. So they had some concerns that there were still some finish items in their opinion that needed to be taken care of. The board would need to decide whether those are even things that they think are covered by a typical bond or not. And the action before the board tonight is not to release the entire bond. I do not have anything from Graves that those remaining items in the 19,000, which includes contingency, are completed. It's just to make sure we're on the same page and you're okay per your last motion on this subject with releasing everything but the 19,000, which covered the remaining bond items and had its own contingency. So Mr. Burns, I believe, is out there. I don't know if Mr. Vanderlinden is out there. Again, you do have the emails from Mr. Vanderlinden. I did include those in your files along with the photographs he sent. Bob, you don't have that because those just came today. They're on your electronic file, sorry. Kyle can maybe share some of those if the board wants to see them. And that's kind of where we stand on that. So I don't know if you want to just confirm that I should write up the release of everything but 19, or if you want to hear from Mr. Burns or review Mr. Vanderlinden's information and hear from him if he's here, whatever your pleasure is.
Well,
I can show the photos if you want. What do you want me to do?
I would think you should maybe put up those photos if you could.
Yeah.
Sure. I can do that.
Yeah, which photos we looking for? The
I
site?
got them.
Okay.
I got them right here. Let me
oh, there they are.
screen share. Screen share. This one, share. Okay, so you got this email from Mr. Vanderlinden. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
That said, they had concerns. The lawn portion of the pictures is a result of Blackbrook trying to install, they don't think there's enough irrigation wells out there. And they don't think the board should provide, should release any contingency until these issues are resolved. And then as we scroll through, you'll see there are areas where the lawn is sparse. Clearly, and I think the concern is there's just not enough irrigation out there, which is really not a bond item. And this is adjacent to the greens. You can see this rocky kind of messy area here. And the roadway is on the other side of the buildings from this rocky area. This is kind of just where the residential development comes together with the golf course. So I don't know if you consider this kind of portion of the site part of the bonding or not. And then, I mean, you've got some dead plantings, which dead plantings are required to replace dead or diseased plantings per the board's approval in the next planting season. We don't want that replanted now because it would just probably die again. But again, I'm sure part of that concern is if there was, or the assertion is if there was more irrigation, maybe that wouldn't be dead. I don't know. So these are just some of the concerns expressed. So I don't know if Mr. Vanderlinden or a trustee is on the call and wants to elaborate, and or if Mr. Burns wants to have anything in response to those concerns.
So as a question, there's an irrigation system on the property that sprays water all over the place every morning. What does this mean? I don't understand the problem.
Why is the planning board doing stuff?
What's it got to do with the planning board?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's up to you to decide. Absolutely. If you don't,
It's not.
We have a drought. We shouldn't be watering our lawn in the state of Massachusetts.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's planning board stuff.
right. Is Mr. Vanderlinden or any of the trustees on the meeting? Have anything to say?
For the record, I concur this is not in our purview.
I would think this is an issue between the developer and the condo association.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm ready to.
Yeah, I just interject to say that I agree and I will withhold a lot of my comments, but I think it's very important for the board to know that I have never been notified of these issues, not once. And the only reason I know of these is I contacted Jen today to see where we stood on the agenda. And I'll leave it at that, but I believe you're 100% right. These are developer issues that we have to work with them. Some of the land they're showing you is not even our land. It's land on the golf course. And they've allowed so many homeowners. If you notice, there was one where it showed an exposed rock. That's a homeowner that had somebody come in and do work after we conveyed the unit to them that threw it over the hill. It's not fair what Mr. Vanderlinden has represented.
This is Mr. Burns, John Burns talking, since of the developer of the villas at Pleasant Valley.
And I will add that we did what was asked of us back in June. There was an issue with the easement. We went out and got it. Mr. Van der Linden inserted himself in the middle, made it much more difficult to accomplish, but we accomplished it. We got it. It's recorded. I did everything I was asked to do, and we have done even more things on that list, and I'm not asking for bond reduction. I would respectfully ask the board to go with their vote that they did back in June, which was I got the easement, it was recorded. They would release it down to 19,000, and we will work whatever we need to work out with the homeowners association.
Thank you.
Don't need a vote. I just need to know if you're in agreement with that. I just, with having received the complaints from the trustees, I didn't want to be caught in the middle of this, and wanted to confirm that you are comfortable going ahead with your previous vote.
The planning board has done everything it was supposed to do to reduce the bond reduction on the phase 3 that we talked about.
And we are still holding funds, obviously.
Right, so move along.
Yep.
For me, you need a motion on that, or?
No, I just need a straw poll, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, can we have a straw poll on this?
You heard my,
The chair feels that the issues that were brought up are between the association and the developer, and are not in our area of interest, shall we say, for lack of a better expression. Mike.
Mike Egan, I agree with all of your statements that this should not slow things up.
Bob.
Bob Rogers is ready to reduce the bond reduction.
Okay.
That's described.
I agree.
Kyle.
I concur with the chair.
Okay.
Okay, then I will prepare the paperwork for that reduction, John, and let you know when it's ready.
Thank you very much. Sorry you had to go through this.
All right. Now let's go back
Okay.
to some potential bylaw changes. All right. Boy, you asked for it and I bombarded you with about a ton of paperwork. So, for those of you who have things in paper version, I would recommend you kind of pull out the list of potential bylaw changes and put that to one side. And then we will run through the additional documents that I've provided to you. But Mr. Chairman, if we could start, Kyle, if you could share the letter regarding fall town meeting from the town manager, if we could just read through that first, kind of as a precursor to our discussion tonight.
Do we have to read that?
I could read it into the record, absolutely. So I think Kyle's trying to share it. If
I don't think I have that letter in my packet.
I have it. Let me find it. I can read it. It was in the beginning.
here, I'll share it to the screen.
I've got the letter here. If you want me to read it.
Here, I'm just calling it to the screen and then you can read it out loud for anybody who might be participating by phone. Whoops, hold on a minute. Apparently my battery's not plugged in correctly. One moment. Not good. Hold on.
Oh.
I'm sorry, my computer's trying to.
That's the letter from James Smith.
Yeah, go
Yes.
ahead and read it, somebody.
All right.
Try to share it.
Do you want to read it, Bob?
Sure.
Okay.
As discussed over the phone, the select board has a goals meeting on Tuesday. Had a goals meeting on Tuesday, July 28th, and they were unanimously stated they didn't want any controversial items at the fall town meeting. They were concerned about the health and safety of all members of the public. They also wanted to make sure that the town continues to be open and transparent in all areas of public interest. The Romasco Gym only seats a limited amount of people and there is no good spillover area. 7 months for the town fall meeting. There will be a spring meeting and the board will be open to an outside meeting where an unlimited number of residents can attend. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and that's from James Smith, our town manager.
All right, so that's the backdrop to our discussion. We also did receive a letter from Mr. Fusaro, who owns the property adjacent just to the south of Atlas Box. And he had some concerns with the use table, so we'll go over that then, the potential use table changes. So we'll just go over his comments at that time. Okay, so in terms of the potential planning board articles, we discussed Article A, which is adding the marijuana uses to the office light industrial district. Unless the board feels differently, I don't think we need to go into any more discussion on that. As was presented last time, if we don't specify where the uses can go, they can go literally anywhere.
Yep.
The second one was about the 25-foot separation to the town line. And so what I did was I did a drawing in South Sutton in particularly to show kind of what we're talking about here. So let me pull that up. Okay. So this is, you'll see, this is Oakhurst Road coming in. You've got the solar panels north of Oakhurst Road. You've got Jenna and Jared Drive there. And this area south of Oakhurst Road and east of Lackey Dam Road is the area that is zoned office light industrial and has been for probably 30, 31 years. This article would allow what you see here in blue. Basically, all of this area, pretty much all of it, is owned by Mary Bedoin. It's kind of her retirement plan. She has been trying to sell this and the land across the highway to developers for many, many moons. And now there is interest. The blue building represents where you could ideally maximize the use of the land by placing a building on top of town lines. So you see where there's Sutton, Douglas, and Uxbridge. So if we change the bylaw, you could potentially place the building where you see it in blue to kind of wedge it in and maximize the use of the land between the gas line easement to the west and the power line easements to the east. Now, without that, you force potential development to shift development plans. And you would get basically what you see here in more of a purple color. You can already do what you see in purple on parcel 72. That's already zoned office light industrial, and you can already do that. But basically, if a developer's looking at the blue parcel area and they want to try to get it in there, they would either shift it north, closer to Oakhurst Road to fit it all in, or they would widen it out and just pull it all into Uxbridge and Douglas, who has no town separation requirements and also has limited setback from roadway requirements. And you'd end up with the purple, slightly fatter square you see on this screen. So really the intent of this regulation is to allow you to more efficiently and effectively use land that's open for development. And this is just one example of how development can be affected by not being able to place a structure over the town lines. I want to be very clear, this bylaw is only structures. So you could place a parking lot over the town line. In the case of that lower square, what would probably happen is that you get the purple square where all the taxes would go to Douglas and Uxbridge and the whole parking lot would come to Sutton. And then that would be a slightly trickier negotiation between the assessors to get us a decent share of tax revenue, obviously. So I just wanted to give you a visual of kind of why We were looking to kind of eliminate that structure separation to town lines to allow a structure to be placed on the town lines, both here in South Sutton and as I showed you at the last public hearing, on the Millbury-Sutton line in the aggregate parcel where, again, the same situation exists. One landowner owns a significant portion of land that straddles the town line. And when you have to keep a building off that town line or away from it, you put a whole kink in the efficient development of land. Okay, so that was kind of my visual on that.
Jen,
Do you have any
Jen,
questions on that before I move on?
yeah, I'm just, it makes perfect sense. If a project is going to be on that parcel, percentage of the project, whether it's the building or parking, should be shared. It should all be shared based on what percentage is in your town, whether it's I get that part of it. The thing that has me nervous is up the road on 146, where we have open land in Grafton for Wedgewood. I want to work with other towns, but remember where the town was going to be?
Oh, you mean the condominium development on Forest
I was saying,
Edge?
what are we doing putting, parts of a project in another town? So I don't mind having a project that we share with 2 or 3 towns, but we all have to share on it.
Right.
Just thinking of what that was, and being at the board saying, what were we thinking when we put the open space for this requirement in another town that's now going to have a cell tower on it? The whole thing was just, the train was off the track, and we didn't know why. So be cautious.
Absolutely. Yeah, my only thought about kind of the parking is not restricted from the town line was to, as I told you in your last meeting, tax stuff, all that revenue stuff is negotiated between the boards of assessors, potentially with some input from the accounting or management teams in each town. And obviously, if we don't have building and all we have is parking, I'm sure our assessing and management team will make an argument that that's still part of an operation, but we have a lot less leg to stand on in terms of percentages and tax revenue. Maybe you have a better leg to stand on in terms of excise tax, who knows? But, if
you don't have for employees, you don't have anyone working in your factory. So the parking is critical.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that was concerning about the potential of just shifting the building south into Uxbridge, or a building, there's no particular building right now proposed, but a building south into Uxbridge and Douglas is you have the building, the employees, the potential majority lion's share of tax revenue going to those towns, but you still have every single bit of the impact in Sutton. Right. So, ultimately, when you have an area that's been planned for development for a long time, on which development will happen, you want to try to maximize the use of the land within Sutton. So if we're taking the impacts, that we at least get a decent share of the revenue and jobs and what benefits can be derived.
Okay. Do those other towns have this allowance in their town at this time?
Yeah, you can there's no separation to town line in Douglas or Uxbridge. You can go to and over the town line in those towns.
So if we did that, we would be consistent with our neighbors.
Right, which is, you were called the 4-town development group probably 15, almost 20 years ago. We've been working for a long time to be very consistent with the towns that we abut so we can efficiently develop land that straddles the borders.
So relative to Jim Smith's letter, is this a controversial article?
I mean, the deal is anything can be controversial. There were obvious reasons why the residents in the area, or more obvious reasons, I should say, why the residents in the area had some concerns about the multi-town mixed commerce bylaw. I don't recall if we had the written opinion at the time that warehouse and distribution could go on this land tomorrow. I don't recall if we had that or not. So they may have been concerned that you were adding a use that they were worried about. The 60-foot height was a concern. We heard that at town meeting and public hearings. That's no longer proposed.
Right.
Reducing the setback to the zoning line was a concern. That's no longer proposed. So while this bylaw helps, would help a user that wanted to straddle the line, it also helps the town participate more fully and use our land in development, as opposed to pushing it south, which would give, we'd still get all the impacts and none of the benefits.
Right.
Or pushing it north, which you may still have development in the north. You can pull a permit for a warehouse tomorrow right up against Oakhurst Road. But, you know, you have more possibility that a potential user will push a use north or south to avoid our setback and not have to deal with that, because you're not going to get a variance for that, than to just straddle the line and use the land most efficiently within those weird power line easements that exist here and actually also exist on the aggregate parcel in Northeast Sutton.
So the drawback is that the three towns don't have a common bylaw.
No, we're the odd man out.
We tried to do that, it didn't work. So now we have our heights, we have our coverage ratios, we have this, we have that, and Douglas has something different.
Yeah, and actually both Douglas and Uxbridge, or at least Douglas, I honestly don't know about Uxbridge, but Douglas definitely allows higher height buildings too. So, and we can't do anything about that other than if something is proposed over the line, to watch that closely and make sure we also see what's going on with traffic and impacts as well.
What about the, what about that National Grid property down there? Isn't that over the line?
Yeah, we worked cooperatively, obviously, with National Grid, but you'll note when you look at that site, the entire National Grid, the main building, the whole building is in, that was before Nick asked us to add the 25-foot separation. So that one straddled the line. So we got a corner of that building and they got the rest of the building. Then Nick asked for our lead, or one of our lead assessors asked for that separation, primarily because he was having issues with homes, very small footprints that were being split and arguments occurring about that, not so much big commercial buildings. And again, we're only proposing this be eliminated in the office light industrial districts, not the residential districts. When you're building a little house, you'll be able to shift it so it doesn't sit on a town line. I lost my train of thought. I was thinking about trains actually in Northeast Sutton.
I hear what Scott's saying about things that aren't supposed to be controversial, but at the same time, with the situation that we're in today as a town and in this economy, someone better put something in first gear and start this thing moving somewhere. And I don't want to miss an opportunity to get things to start going in a positive direction for so many businesses and for all towns, not just Sutton, to get things going again. You know, I don't want it to be controversial, one thing, but to be too hot to handle, that's something different.
Does anybody get the feeling, including you, Jen, that the residents in this area are going to use the term loophole and, you know, come out in force like they did?
I don't know. I mean, at the last town meeting, we had about 30 individuals related in the neighborhood or related to the people in the neighborhood that came out and were vocal on the MTMC bylaw. And there were some usual attendees of town meeting as well that had mixed feelings and I believe might have voted against that as well. It was about a 50-50 vote. If you saw maybe a little less, but you need a 2/3 vote for anything to pass. But, you know, I think I've talked to the residents in the last few weeks and explained, you know, what we're talking about now, that, you know, that warehouse distribution use is allowed. We have a written opinion that was different, I think, than last time. And the board heard what the residents said and has at least for the time being, pulled that 60 feet and pulled that reduced setback. You know, and is trying to honor that request. This is likely located in the Route 146 overlay district. All of this parcel is owned by the same owner. It merges under doctrine of merger. So if you put something in the middle of it, it can go up to 45 feet high in that district, but no higher, without a variance, which is another public hearing process. So I think maybe that wasn't entirely understood by everybody at the, you know, as of a few weeks ago, and I think it is now. That being said, I don't have a crystal ball. You know, could the neighborhood still have some concerns, or could they feel that
And they should.
they just don't want to
They have-
promote
they have to
anything
have-
on the land? That's a different,
They have input.
right?
Should we ask if anybody out there wants to has any statement on this
Yeah,
particular issue?
Before we do that, we're trying to decide what we're putting on the ballot. Is that what we're doing here?
Yeah, we're trying to run through these. I want to give you the additional information you asked me for last time to kind of help you understand the articles. And then we need to decide what you're moving forward with and what you're not.
Right. Let's do that.
Let's hear the public, because I just assumed.
But the selectmen have the, I'm with that, but the selectmen will have final.
I'm losing you, Bill.
Bill, you're breaking up.
Will the selectmen have the final say on what goes on a meeting warrant?
I believe the selectmen have the ability to pull an article off the warrant. The warrant is theirs. It's their document. So I don't know that for certain. That is just my belief. I can't tell you that for sure. Obviously, if something comes by petition, nobody can touch it. But where these would be planning board sponsored articles, I believe the selectmen can pull any articles that they think would be controversial and contrary to kind of their intent to try to kind of keep people safe and limit the attendance and make sure the I believe the wording was along the lines of that, you know, you get your biggest open meeting compliance, basically.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Proceeding with the
Moving forward
article.
with that one. Yes.
Yeah. Bob Largis, I'm on board.
No, Scott,
Yeah, I'm on board.
Kyle,
Kyle Bergson, I'm on board.
Michael,
Mike Egan, yes, I'm on board as well.
and the Wally Baker is on board.
Good.
Does anybody out in our audio visual land have anything to say? Any comments they would like to make on this?
Looks like we have Mike S.
Yeah,
TE316 and the number 177433030. I don't see anyone unmuting or raising their hand.
okay. All right, then we'll go to the next one.
All right, so the next one was, grandfathered lots. So you got just a ton of paperwork on this. So what I gave you, and Kyle, I don't know if you've refreshed your drive today, but if you haven't, that might be why you can't see some of these. Basically, I gave you two different documents, one by Perry from 2000 and one by Don Schmidt from 2009, that describe the different categories of grandfathered lots. And then you got two maps that we talked about last week. And then you got a rewrite of the article based on some of our discussion last week and what I read in all of these summaries. So, all right, so this first one, I think the reason I gave you this is because we needed to go backwards. We needed to talk about the types of pre-existing non-conforming lots. So this one you can scroll past because this is not germane. So just scroll right onto the next page, Kyle. All right, you can come back a little bit. All right, so the first type of pre-existing lot is a lot that pre-existed zoning entirely. or it pre-existed a zoning change, but it is only in one ownership. So if you have a lot and you own it and you don't own a lot on either side, and it is at least 5,000 square feet and it has at least, I can't see the frontage there, it's covered up, hold on a minute. And it has at least 50 feet of frontage, then you're grandfathered, period. You are grandfathered. Nothing magical needs to happen. Even if the lot was created quite a long time ago, you can apply for a building permit tomorrow because you are a legally pre-existing non-conforming lot if, let me give you the caveat, if that was shown on an endorsed or recorded plan or another legal instrument like a deed by itself that was acceptable and legal at the time that it was created. So we don't need to give exceptions to these standalone lots that were legally created. They already are grandfathered and they need no special consideration. So it's the next category, if you want to scroll to the next one, that needs the consideration. It is the kind of thing that came up in the lawsuit that we were talking about. If you are an owner of of 2 or 3 lots that sit adjacent to each other, you can see the interpretation. The lots have to have been held in common ownership before zoning came into effect or the zoning changed, making them non-conforming. The plans have to have been recorded or endorsed before the zoning change. And the lots, this is a strange one. I can't even explain it to you thoroughly. The lots had to conform to the zoning requirements as of January 1st, 1976, which in the town of Sutton were 40,000 square feet and 175 meter frontage. And then you only have this grandfathering for 5 years from the date of the zoning change. After that 5 years, you're done. So if you're the typical layperson and you bought 2 lots, 2 non-conforming, or 2 lots that were conforming back in 1970, and one was for you to build on and one was for your kid, and you just held them for forever, and you don't know, you don't sit on a planning board or you're not a planner, and your kid grows up, you give them the lot because it's a separate deed, and they go to pull a building permit and the building commissioner says no because you owned it for more than 5 years after those lots were created separately, then this is the issue we're up against. This is the issue we're trying to give relief for, is these common lots, and you can decide whether you give relief for 1 lot or 2 lots, held in common ownership with an adjacent developed lot. This is the relief we're trying to seek. So let me just scroll down. I don't think there's any more we need relief on. Kyle, if you could just scroll a little bit. Definitive subdivision plans, the lots are grandfathered as to use for 8 years from the date the board signs the plan. And actually use and dimension for 8 years. So they have full grandfathering for a full 8 years. There are very few, if any, unbuilt lots within approved subdivisions in Sutton that we need to worry about. And so that's, and again, if they're only in single ownership and there's not a lot right next door owned by them, they're grandfathered anyways. And then the last one is Form A plans, I believe. Yeah, so a Form A plan, the use only is grandfathered for 3 years. And the Form A plan is as good as long as the zoning lasts. And again, if you own a lot, you had it approved on a Form A, it complied to the zoning at the time, and you don't own another lot next door, that lot's just grandfathered, period. It's grandfathered. Nobody can pull the rug out from under you and change the rules in the middle of the game. So the subset of lots we're talking about is extremely small. It is pre-existing, legally pre-existing non-conforming lots that are in common ownership or were in common ownership so that they legally merged. So I gave you 2 maps. the lots shown on these maps are more lots than you would be giving exceptions for because I couldn't sort by ownership. So let's pull up this one. You're gonna have to like zoom in and zoom out. So like zoom into Northeast Sutton, that's where most of the lots are. So you can see these are lots over 20,000 square feet because we were thinking of accepting lots over 20,000 square feet. And you can see a bunch of them are back lots, so those wouldn't count. And then of this subgroup of lots, only the ones that are in common ownership with the developed lot right next door to them are the ones we're talking about giving relief to. So then I went in the other direction with the second map. So this is like, this is a real conservative one. So you can zoom into any area you want. This is where I went for all lots greater than 20,000 square feet and less than 80,000 square feet, because in the residential districts, that's the minimum lot size you need for a buildable lot. So that increased to this many parcels. But the reality is a lot of these parcels, again, you're seeing a lot of backland and you're seeing 80,000 square foot parcels that may or may not have conforming frontage. So it looks like there's more exposure out there, but there's not substantially more. And again, we come back to the qualifier, only lots shown in green on here that are owned by the same party or financial interest as the non-colored lot right next door are the ones we would be giving relief to. This is an extremely small subset of lots. So last is, based on all of that gobbledygook, I took a shot at rewriting the article. And if Kyle can find that one. Just let me know, Kyle. If not, I can share it. Okay, so here's my shot at a rewrite. Any lawful, pre-existing, non-conforming, vacant lot within R1, R2, or V. So we're not talking about industrial ones because the law doesn't automatically grant grandfathering stuff for industrial lots, believe it or not. With a minimum of 20,000 square feet area and 50 feet of frontage that is or was held in common ownership. And I'll tell you why I said that in a minute, was or is, with an adjacent legally developed lot and for which the 5-year zoning change exemption period from Mass General Law has expired, may be determined to be buildable pursuant to a special permit granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals in accordance with the provisions of Section 7A. The Zoning Board of Appeals must additionally find that said vacant lot is substantially consistent in size and frontage with other developed lots in the immediate area. Said special permit shall only apply to one such vacant lot. Now you could say it'll apply to 2 because under law you could hold up to 3, but I just limited it to 1 in this example. You can say 2 if you wanted. So say somebody bought 3 and they developed the one in the middle, you can exempt the one on either side if you think that that's not much exposure or anything. Now the reason I said was or is held in common ownership, I will use the example of the lawsuit issue. So this lady and her husband bought 2 separate lots they wanted to build on one, and the second one would be their retirement money, basically. They would hold it, give it to a child, or more likely sell it when it appreciated in value as Sutton became more well-known and the like, to put in an account as they aged. So they decided to not build on one of those lots. Actually, no, they built on it and they decided to move somewhere else. So they kept the vacant lot and they sold their house lot to somebody else. They didn't think they were doing anything wrong. And then they went to sell, put on the market the second lot, and the very bright realtor said, whoa, that's an undersized lot. I don't know if you can sell that, blah, blah, blah. And it got referred to me, and I said, no, you can't, because we traced the deed back a little bit. And we saw that they had held these 2 undersized lots. Even if they hold it for a day, they merge. And they were just the average person that just doesn't understand that if you own 2 lots side by side and the zoning changes, they merge. And so they are the typical case where they just didn't understand, like many people don't. And they're left with their retirement lot, which they cannot sell. It's not a buildable lot right now. So this bylaw change would say they did own them together at one point. Now this one is owned by somebody that they sold it to, but they still own this. But they did own them together. They did functionally merge. That made this one non-buildable. So this bylaw would allow them to apply to the zoning board and the zoning board to look at development in the area and say, hey, everything else that's built in this area, is it on about the same size lot? Does it have about the same size frontage? Then these people shouldn't bear the burden of not being able to develop this lot. They bought and held in good faith. That's it.
There's a bunch of them.
So there's actually, like I said, that green map with all the lots, which again, I'm sorry, the gray map in your case, where that is that you'll have nowhere near that, because from that set, you have to pull out all lots without frontage. From that set, you have to pull out all lots that are otherwise conforming. And then from that set, you pull out all lots that aren't owned by the exact same person as the lot next door. So we're talking handfuls of lots. We are not talking 500 lots. We're not talking even 50 lots. We're talking really handfuls tops in the entire town. So, but I wanted to give you all the stuff so you kind of got all the background on it, because that wasn't really, I apologize, wasn't really well explained last time. I might have just confused you all over again just now, but but basically we're only talking about lots that are owned by the same person or were owned by the same person. So they merged under that doctrine of merger. And for some reason, either they sold one off and it's just sitting here unusable, or they still own the other one and they've been told they can't use this one now. They had no idea. They had no idea, no reason to know that.
This came from John, right? This request to support this came from John.
Well, it came kind of from John, but it's in discussion with town council based on an existing lawsuit that's out there that I just described to you. You know, a couple just bought 2 lots and they were thinking they'd build on one and have one for their retirement. When lots went up in value, they ended up selling their house and moving somewhere else. I don't know if they're in town or in the area. And then they just went to sell the other one to fund their retirement and were told basically, you have a useless piece of land. And they weren't trying to do anything underhanded. They had a legally conforming lot. And then we changed the zoning on them and it made their lot non-conforming.
I find it hard to believe that this is just showing up now.
What do you mean? Theirs?
I mean, like the lawsuit or the issue, I would think this would be a pretty prevalent thing across the whole state.
Yeah, it is prevalent across the whole state, but it's not prevalent in large numbers, because when you think about it, other than kind of developers, not a lot of people buy 2 and 3 lots in a group and hold them, you know? So you just have, that's why I said, this is handfuls in Sutton at most. I honestly don't think it's more than 10 lots. But because I haven't, there's certain things my mapping software can't do. It can't sort by name. It can't pull lots that have the same names and show me them. It's, you know, or at least not with my skills. I can ask my map guy, but I really, it's a minimal group of lots. But yeah, no, this occurs all over the states. Thus the whole doctrine of merger thing. And what I read and what you will see, there's a case that just came up. It's most towns have an exception for this in their bylaws. That's why you don't hear about it a lot. And that came up in a recent case decided in 2019 on this issue. where the court was looking at the provisions in the town's bylaws that gave exceptions for these cases, and actually took a really strict interpretation of their exception and weren't sure they were going to allow it. But most towns have dealt with this. I shouldn't say most, but many towns have dealt with this, have realized it's an issue of equity. And it's rarely the case that you have a developer that's just hoarding 3 lots in a row, you know, hoping the town adopts something that lets them build them. If they have them, they build them out and they're gone, you know? So it's usually the unsuspecting person who doesn't see why they can't buy 2 lots side by side, so maybe their kid can live next to them, or they can sell it when they get old and make some money off of it.
And then the person who buys that house from the person who had 2 lots, the person who's buying that house, I would ask about the lot next door and what's going to happen there. And they may be saying, no, I'm going to sell that later on. You should buy it now.
Yeah, and right.
But again, that's not our stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the buyer of the house had no reason to, I mean, they had no skin in the game. They might have asked what they were going to do, and they said, oh, we're just going to sell it for a house lot, and they didn't care, you know, but.
Yeah, not our stuff. I don't know.
So I am not.
I'm overwhelmed with information at this point.
Yeah, it's a lot of information, and I'll have to tell you, I could go far in a field with those maps, but I would also need an intern to actually do the paperwork, legwork, to really drill down to the lots that are in the same ownership side by side. Because that is literally the only group we're talking about. All the other ones that were created prior to zoning or prior to zoning changes that are owned by one person and they never owned anything on either side that are non-conforming, those are grandfathered, period.
Well, Mr. Chairman, what do the other board members think?
I think we should support the article.
I second that.
I agree.
Did you lift the verbiage from some other municipality, Jen?
I did not lift the verbiage. I just went through each item and said, all right, how do we make sure we're really just dealing with this small subset of parcels, that we're making this what we intend it to be, only to address this specific issue of equity, really, in this limited circumstance. So,
I support it. I support it.
Yep. Mike?
Yeah, I would tend to go on Jen's judgment of how limited a number of lots would be, so I would support it as well.
Kyle?
Yep.
Okay.
Only if it's less than 10 lots though, Jen. Only if it's less than.
I'll go.
Make me do the work.
15. 15.
Can we put a condition on it?
What is it? You're such a smart Alec. The good news is all of these changes go to town council for review, but not until you know that you're going forward, because we don't waste money. So town council will let us all know, including me, who's, you know, been a planner for a long time, but is not perfect at all of this, if there's any fatal flaw there.
Yeah.
I wish I could look in the back of the room and see Nikki putting his hand up.
Oh.
Yeah.
That would thank you.
Well, Nikki and I have.
He'll get to weigh in.
Yes.
So we can have some further guidance.
I will actually forward it to him tomorrow probably and have a conversation with him.
Because that's the stuff
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go to the next one.
Yikes. Okay. So the next one was about the use table. So I did give you, as I promised, the Institute of Traffic Engineers, their definitions of different industrial land uses, including the different kinds of warehousing. Because we were talking about whether we would proceed with the use table or not. So I thought these were kind of interesting because you could just see the way the traffic engineers kind of professionally divvy things up. And as you scroll through, you'll start to see there's probably, I think, I told you 5 or 6 different types of warehouses, and you'll see it's maybe 4 or 5. I did go to the National Industrial Classification System, and it wasn't as easy as you see here to pull their definitions. So I did see that they're very similar to some of the industrial warehousing kind of categories you see here. So Kyle, if you just scroll down a little bit, keep going. Might be page 4 or 5. So you have just general warehousing here, but as you scroll, you'll see then they break it into mini warehousing. Then you scroll and you'll see these ones I was talking about last week, high cube transload and short-term storage warehouse. And you'll see the next one is high cube
I got lost.
center. So this one is like an Amazon, this one. High cube parcel hub warehouse. So you just have to read the definitions and see how they vary. High cube cold storage, specialty trade contractor. I threw that one in because we had talked about NEDT and that what kind of use they are, and that vacuum excavating company. And I thought this definition was kind of interesting. I think the one thing I found as I was going through these in the NAICS is when you talk about controversy or lengthening town meeting, unfortunately, this is the kind of discussion, this kind of detailed changes to the use table, whether you like it or not, these are the kind of things that are going to generate a lengthier town meeting and probably more attendance, just because, you know, they're potentially sweeping and they're, frankly, I think kind of interesting, though people would probably laugh at me for that. But they're
it's a rule change.
right. So
A lot of education for us as a board and for the public to know what you're doing.
well, and a lot to think about, because as we talked about, there are certain types of just warehousing that might work in Northeast Sutton and not in South Sutton, and vice versa. There's certain types of, you know, and do you want to kind of divvy that out? Or do you want to take your existing definition and switch it up? Do you want to, you know, and that's a lot to think about. And I don't like to not be prepared for development that's coming our way. As Bob expressed, more than ever, we're going to need our industries up and rolling as fast as possible. But this one's complicated, all of these use changes and thinking about the definition.
Controversial for this town meeting.
So,
We can
yeah.
work on
Yeah.
my sense. Other people can weigh in.
I would tend to agree, Bob.
Some things are just made to be done in person, not Zoom.
Like our planning boards.
I concur.
I mean, I love to improve our bylaws and clear up our use table and put progressive and up-to-date things in our table, but boy, my gut says this one's just a little too fast.
Yep.
Okay.
Does that include the rezoning of?
No, we're still talking about that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think if the majority of the board, I'm not hearing majority, if the majority of the board thinks we just table this one, then we'll move on to the next one.
I think we should table this one. This is a can of worms at the moment.
I would agree with Wally on this one. Table it.
Bob Largis, yes. Scrap it.
Hey, don't scrap it. Table, don't scrap.
With the intention of having it ready in spring. Right?
Yeah.
Good point.
Right.
Yes, right.
Okay.
I hope we're going by then. I want to be, but boy, we're in the thick of it right now.
All right, so it sounds like majority there.
Yep.
Kyle's silent, but if he just nods his head, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at the rezoning, because I think that's the last thing, because if we're not playing with the use table, there's no need to play with those definition articles, and the selectmen are not bringing forward their select men to select board change.
Yep.
So it's just that rezoning. So the rezoning, as we discussed last time, is just to provide access, an alternate access point to anything that gets developed on the aggregate site, is to provide an additional point of access to the area road system. So instead of every bit of traffic having to go to Providence Road, you could potentially do an access road out to Boston Road. So you'd split the traffic flow to two different entrances. I apologize profusely for the size of so pull up that little table down. Okay. So this is the model. This is kind of potential land use that the traffic models were based on. So you have, hit the minus button there, Kyle. The little minus, no, not the little minus button on the squiggle around on the screen. Minus button. All right, so this is not just aggregate, but kind of the whole priority development site area that is all, we're getting a lot of looks at this whole area. So you've got the 20 acres, the town, 20 acres Worcester Sand and Gravel owns. You've got a town parcel north of that. And the rest, the 10.5 acres is Worcester Sand and Gravel. The 13, the 17, the 5.5, the 7, and the parcels north of there, other than the town parcel, were all part of the aggregate holdings. So what we did is we kind of, first we blocked out the easily developable areas of these sites based on what's already been excavated for earth removal. You'll see that the lot lines of these parcels go farther east and go farther west than the little yellow areas. The yellow areas are just what can fairly easily be developed that's already been excavated. So wanting to leave a buffer to adjacent residential areas, we just kind of carved out what could easily be developed. And what would be the most likely interest or use categories based on what the town's needs are, but also what could be easily marketed and developed. So you have the 17 acres down at the bottom that could potentially be apartment units, potentially 25% affordable. Apartments can be counted at 100% if only 25% are HUD affordable. So you could get a large bang for your buck in your affordable housing inventory if you did apartments down there and you have water and sewer and gas right there. So we would encourage that potentially based on our housing study. The 13 acres retail business kind of goes with the retail that's across the street. It's kind of a transition, serve the apartments, go with the development across the street, and also potentially serve some of the businesses inside this potential industrial park. Then, because of the placement of the power lines, which run through this site, where the red line is, which is also the zoning line, and kind of where the pink line is, which is the previous gravel haul road, you get a natural kind of physical separation in the site that would separate the residential kind of retail component from the industrial component. So then you transition to kind of light industry business and then into full industry, and hopefully up on the north end of the site, as we discussed last time, industry that takes advantage of the rail line, including 23 acres that are open and level in the town of Millbury. So using these general use categories and then drilling down even further, there is a table at the front of the traffic model attachment, Kyle, where we drilled down even a little bit further, took those parcels, you'll see in the type of development column, all those parcels, and we drilled down and assigned actual uses based on the various development companies that we've been having conversations with that are looking at these parcels, who have asked specific questions about specific uses. And then we picked the ITE codes. Those are those codes you see in those definitions. If it doesn't have an ITE code, that doesn't mean the traffic from it wasn't included. There's a traffic methodology that lets you calculate just industry in general at, say, 7 acres. Like you'll see that 7-acre industry. So you are getting traffic numbers in the traffic models from that parcel, even though it doesn't have an ITE code assigned to it. So all of that got plugged into traffic modeling with one of the state's leading traffic modelers who actually does the majority of very complicated Mass DOT traffic modeling for Mass DOT. And you get these maps. And again, I apologize for how small they are. This is just the way they come over because they're part of spreadsheets. And as you scroll through them, basically what you get out of them is that you can see the red lines. These are volume to capacity models. As soon as you start to see yellow on these maps, you are having problems on your roadways. Problems, delays.
How about red?
Start to see red.
How about red?
You're sitting. You've got big, you're stopped traffic at some
Well,
point.
wait, let's just stop on this one for a minute. It looks like most of the traffic on almost every one of these maps is you go into
Grafton.
Grafton.
Exactly.
You're going into Grafton.
And by the way, these are blow-ups of a section of the map. So I can send you, I just didn't want to overwhelm you even more, the longer view of this map. And what you will see is frankly, all you have to do is think about it. As soon as you get out of Sutton, the roadway network in Grafton and the roadway network in Millbury Center is much more complicated. You've got a lot more intersections, you've got a higher traffic volume, you've got a bigger population count. So while we are not seeing on Sutton roadways a ton of red with some of these development sites, basically just over the line in Grafton and Millbury, that's where you start to see the impacts because their roadway systems are tighter and more complicated. And frankly, employees are coming to and from these sites. Trucks go to and from, Route 140 and 495 through Grafton. And these models, as I told you last time, we don't have specific users. So these models are based on the way traffic travels now. And traffic right now, all you have to do is sit out there on these intersections on PM peak, and you'll watch the traffic ramp up, particularly on the evening peak hour, which is 6:30 to 7:30. Actually, no, it's 6 to 7. And you get just a ton of traffic on Providence Road to and from Grafton and Millbury, really through that swing. It's not like you don't get any. And you'll see I pulled out to Burbank and Sibley because we've had anecdotal reports of traffic increasing there. And there's a few of these scenarios where the Burbank roadside going into Millbury loads up and goes red. So what you'll observe is there's going to be traffic as time increases, period. And then obviously as you load up different types of uses, you impact different segments of the roadway. What was interesting is for warehousing, I did not include any high cube fulfillment center warehousing because we already had indications on past studies that would cripple these intersections. But I did plug in some warehousing like manufacturing related warehousing. I did plug in some like Champion container type warehousing. That's more it's one servicer, like one company distributing to their clients. And we're not seeing big fat numbers on that. It's interesting. So there are some types of warehousing that you can handle no problem. And in most cases, other than a little section of Boston Road between the new lights at the retail center and Pleasant Valley Road, Dudley Road intersection that goes red, you can see it right there. Other than that little stretch of roadway, which is actually red because of traffic traveling east and stacking to turn into that potential access road. That little road that comes off that red is a make-believe access road that's in about the same position as that pink road through the aggregate site. Other than that, in most cases, the traffic looks much better on most segments with that access road through the aggregate site. So it just shows you that being able to have those 2 points are very important to spreading out the traffic impact from development on this site. So, and what I will send you as well, if you want, is the actual volume to capacity ratio numbers, because what you can't see on here with the colors is the numbers going eastbound and the numbers going westbound. So you see that little red segment on Boston Road, but you can't tell that it's red just because of the traffic traveling east. It's not red because of the traffic traveling west. It's red because traffic is stopped going east, getting ready to turn left into the access road.
So this model could also generate and look at this if instead of going out onto Providence Road, that new access road to this site was actually a big separate in and out, like a loop that went in one place and came to another place.
And there is an analysis without the access road. I think that's scenario 1, might be 1A or 1B. There is a scenario in here as if there was no access road. The problem is with the colors, you see it better with the VC ratios that are numbers in that one case. There is an improvement with the access road on all but this little segment of roadway between with and without the access road. But you don't see it in the colorized map as much as you do when you look at the actual numbers. So I did have them run it without the access road as well, because that's the whole point, right? We don't need to rezone if we don't need the access road. Not right now anyways. And I did want to let you know, just as an aside, we talked about developers looking at this. I had two development meetings just last week on this site. And I'm sorry, in the last 10 days on this site, because I was gone half the week last week. In the last 10 days, I've had 2 development meetings on this site and am aware that there is an agreement in concept actually on this parcel at this time. So I'm just letting you know the facts that for forever this has been sitting there and we've been waiting for it to develop, and it's imminent now. So we need to think about whether we make some adjustments to zoning that will help us. I think I told you in the last meeting, I think potential developers will want to rezone even more of this land. But in the least, I think we really need to think hard about rezoning just enough so that you get access to Boston Road, because if you don't, any traffic is going to Providence Road, and that's going to cause some problems, not just for us, but clearly for Grafton and Millbury.
So a lot of this traffic problem that's created is not trucks, it's really employees coming and going.
Yeah, that's the thing. They don't, in the models, they're taking the full impact. So that is, it doesn't break down between trucks and employees. But so you're seeing both there. He did tell me there might be a way he can pull out truck traffic. But in the existing traffic models he's done, he's seeing actually a lot of transit that goes east through Grafton out to the Hopkinton, out to those areas. So there is a significant number of trucks. And I think you saw that a little bit when you were doing site visits over there for Amarillo. That Providence Road is a connector that does carry both employees and truck traffic. So that's where we are on that. You know, do we shift the zoning just enough to provide a potential access pipe to Boston Road? Not really for more development, because frankly, the land you're rezoning is all under a power line, all of it. So the only thing you could do in there is really solar panels with the blessing of National Grid, or parking or a roadway. You can't put a building under those power line easements. All you're doing is creating the ability to have access, a second access point out of that property. So if properly explained, I don't see a huge controversy. But again, I don't have a crystal ball. You just never know.
And so is there a map, did that map exist, a traffic map that shows if there was no access road, what would happen?
Yeah, that map is one of your maps that's in there.
Let me
I'm
look.
trying, I need to really try to, I mean, the only way to see it really well is to print it on a 2x3 map. The 11x17s do a little better job, but, and just to print the VC numbers themselves, not just the colors, so you can see the numbers scroll up. So, and I was surprised because at first I was like, wow, those numbers aren't going up a lot. And then the traffic engineer that was running these told me what 0.1 and 0.2 and 0.3 means
Yeah,
in terms of volume to capacity ratios,
Yeah. Mhm.
in terms of exponential. And it's like, oh, okay, because I'm not a traffic engineer. So just those little ticks where you see it go up 0.3 to 0.5, that is a significant change in the volume of traffic. So
I don't think that drawing is in here myself.
I think it's 1B and 2B.
let me see.
1B?
1B and 2B, I think.
Here, let me look. One of them says no access road. If you look at my scrolly writing.
Oh, here's a,
No, it goes sideways.
1B
too.
is without access to Boston Road. Is that the,
Right.
2B
I'm
on
looking.
the top.
The scenario 1B, AMP.
yeah.
1B.
Hey,
One-
Jen, well, he's
Without
well,
Boston,
that. I
Boston
got a
Road.
question.
Yep.
The 23 acre parcel in Millbury,
Yes.
are we on the same page as them as far as zoning is?
Yes. Except for that 25-foot separation of town line, which will
Oh, is that
cause
what it
a
is?
problem here as well, because you couldn't straddle that town line with a building. So again,
What is that 20 section?
so basically, if you look at that development map, the town line, you would basically put a 25-foot no-build strip along the town line on the Sutton side. So you couldn't straddle that line with a building. So again, you couldn't most efficiently develop the land because you couldn't
Well,
straddle the
bridge.
line.
There's a
So we're
bridge.
gonna solve this problem too.
Yeah, the 25 feet is a problem here too.
Millbury does not have that.
No, they don't.
So it is a problem.
It is a problem.
Okay.
One thing that, as a planning board, we have to consider, aggregate is done. And 20, 30, 50 years ago, that gravel pit built the Mass Pike and built half of Boston because all the raw material came out of our town. But they've told us it's for sale. They're all done. It's not coming back. So as a planning board, one of our challenges is to do something smart to make sure that we can adjust our sales, if you will, and catch the next opportunity to get some property, some impact and some revenue out of this property. And I think it's on the front burner right now. Something's going to happen there, and we'll have challenges as a planning board, but and it's not necessarily it's controversial, but it's something that has to be done because it's not going to sit there, and the opportunity will present itself in other places, and we'll miss an opportunity.
Well, and the reality is not having access to Boston Road may not stop the development of the aggregate parcel. But if that's the case, if you have development of the aggregate parcel of any size, and everyone that's looked at the parcel is talking development of size, which they can file for tomorrow, then you only have one access point. So again, this rezoning isn't to create more buildable OLI area. It's all under a power line. It's just to create another access point, not more developable area.
So we can support that article at this time, and we can continue to review the building types and those descriptions and other zoning or allowance charts for spring meeting. We could do that.
And like I said, I won't be the least bit surprised if a potential owner wants to pull that office light industrial or business or some kind of zoning even farther west of the power lines. But you don't have to do that right now.
It's all residential right now, right?
Right, it's residential, and right now, even pulling it just to the west edge of the power lines, you still have a huge buffer from there to any developed residential areas. And again, you're not really adding more developable land. You're just adding the ability for an access point. And that traffic, any traffic that's going to come out on 146 is going to come out there anyways. You're just forcing it to go through an undersized intersection, a dangerous intersection, or you're forcing more traffic into the abutting towns and creating dangerous situations at the town lines or just over the town lines or on local roadways you're not currently anticipating.
And I, as a planning board member, I would support the zoning change in the fall.
Bob Largis, I support that 100%.
Bill? Kyle?
I support that, Kyle Bergeson.
Okay. Mike?
Mike and Bill, you're both muted.
Of course I support it.
Mike Gagan, I support it as well.
Yep, Wally Baker supports it. I think we have to get going on these types of situations because if you drive around the general area, there's building going on all over the place. I'm talking commercial, I'm not talking residential. And, we have opportunity here and I think we need to grab it while we have it.
Yeah, and I'm not even necessarily looking at it. I mean, I am looking at it from that direction. Obviously, I am the economic development director as well. And I share people's concerns about, safety at public gatherings and fall town meeting and wanting people to be able to participate if they want to participate. But there are a few things that we know are coming at us that are happening. And if we let them happen without properly adjusting our zoning so that we can have a safer traffic flow or those kind of things, or a better, more efficient development of land, it just seems like the wrong thing to do. I mean, for the right reasons, but still the wrong thing to do from a planning perspective. It's not an easy decision, and the selectmen will ultimately have to decide what they move forward. And hopefully they're watching and or will watch and see your reasoning. And obviously I will write up your reasoning for what you're proceeding with or would like to proceed with. It's not like you're not acknowledging the health concerns and the public participation concerns. There are just things that keep moving, whether you want them to keep moving or not.
We're bringing the easy one forward.
I noticed that there's some individual called Mike's on.
My guess?
On here. Do they want to have a comment on this?
Mike S., do you have anything to say? Did you want to unmute and or?
No? Okay.
Mike S.
Oh.
Who is Mike S.?
This is Mike Simmons. I was.
Mike is here for an upcoming issue.
Oh, okay.
Oh, poor Mike. He's been hanging around all night. Mike is from Skinnell Development, who owns the Prime Metals building. So, and I'm sure as a international development company and a developer who's doing business in the area, may be interested in all this development discussion we're having.
I absolutely was going to call you tomorrow.
Great. All right. So, he's here for something during correspondence. So I don't know if you want to move on to those administrative items, if you're ready to do that, or.
Yep. I think so.
All right. So minutes. I'm praying that's easy.
Yeah.
Your motion to accept the minutes.
Thanks, Scott
Do we
Paul.
have a- do we have a second?
Bob Largis, second.
Okay. Any comments?
Nope.
Okay,
No.
let's take a vote. Michael Gagan?
Yes.
Okay, the chair votes yes. Bob Largess,
Aye.
Scott Paul,
Yes.
Kyle Burgesson.
Kyle Bergson, yes.
Okay, passes 5-0-0.
All right, so the other administrative items were just correspondence. So you have a Douglas proposed bylaw amendment about manufacturing, and you had a Northbridge one. This is the one I couldn't find last time. This is a different retail marijuana establishment. So we had the retail marijuana establishment right on the town line. This is another one that's going in Northbridge. So as you said, Wally, there's development that continues to roll all around us. We don't want to rush development, but obviously we need to be prepared to move forward as development comes our way, whether we're ready or not. Fuller Road, you asked at that public hearing that they submit a dimension drawing. That Fuller Road in your file. Kyle, do you have that in your file, or you want me to share it?
I should have it. Let's take. Oh boy.
Here, I'm there. Let me share it. There.
Just gotta get
So this is the dimension drawing you asked
Okay.
the people to show. Scott, I think that was specifically your request.
Yeah.
So they're showing you, they thought it was at around 25 plus. The addition will be 28 feet, and they have committed to retaining every tree they can in that setback. So very quickly met your condition of approval on that. So that was nice. And then we have the last thing, the thing Mike Simmons is here for. You have an abutter to Prime Metals. They live, this is such small print, I'm sorry. Let me try to share it and blow it up. Teeny tiny print. Ugh, I know it's minuscule, I'm sorry. But this is Mr. Gautreaux. I could be just killing that name. I don't know if Mr. Gautreaux is on the line. But he lives at 21 Barnett Road, and he is concerned with the visibility of the facility from his house. And obviously there's a condition in this approval that says the board has the right to review landscaping and screening and see if it meets the intended results. You can see this is the back and forth with me and Mr. Gautreaux, where I do look at his photos, and I took a drive to the site, and you may want to do that between now and your next meeting. And I did note that the orange stripe, which is their classic stripe for Prime Metals, definitely is, in my opinion, the thing that makes the visibility more obvious from his yard. And you'll recall, and I'll share those photos now, that this is, full foliage. So, in the winter, when some of this goes away, you're definitely going to see the building. I did explain to him there's no rule that says you're not going to see a budding development, but the orange stripe, which is awesome, it is the Prime Metals color, seems to be the thing on the building that pulls the villa's visibility forward a little bit more. So I don't know if the board considers it objectionable or not, but I told that he did ask that the board look at his emails, look at his photos, maybe take a drive by. Feel free to kind of look at it from his yard and see if they would consider requesting some adjustment to the visibility. You'll see in the email, he did get a quote from a landscape company to plant some coniferous trees back there on the back of his yard. I guess you could ask the orange stripe to go away. I don't know how difficult that is. It's a big building. So that's where we are on that. So again, I don't know if Mr. Gattro is on the line, and you do know that Mr. Simmons is present.
What is the distance from the shed, which has a matching door, by the way, to the Prime Metals color, to the Prime Metals building?
That was funny. I actually measured it. It's in one of those emails, roughly. So let me see if I can pull that back up again. Plus, plus, plus. All right, so I said, as you can see, there is approximately 120 feet of permanently protected forested open space between your lot line and the Prime Metals lot. This area is actually owned by IBA, but is part of the overall park open space. And then there's 160 feet of parking lot, which contains 25 to 110 feet deep of no disturb buffer vegetation, which is the conservation condition. And then another 130 feet of distance with no vegetation to the building, as well as another 100 feet of vegetation on your property. So add that up. There is a significant distance there. I truly, really think the main thing that makes that pop is that orange stripe, because the rest of the building is kind of that putty color that blends fairly good. So I don't know, Mike Simmons is with Scannell, who owns that building and owns that lot. I don't know if Mike has anything to say. He's muted right now. Oh, there you go.
Sorry. I mean, I don't know that I really have anything to say or add to it. I mean, I'm here on behalf of Prime Metals, just as they are the tenant. It is their brand. We submitted all the plans originally and did this. I have to say the Scannell came into this a little bit later, so I think all the plans were originally submitted through a different developer. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, because
yeah, King Street Properties was the original applicant.
But I guess I've been asked, or Jen brought this to our attention, and we've looked at it, and adding trees or coniferous trees, well, we don't have room on our property to do that. We would have to then go through a bunch of different things to add trees, and if you're looking at the elevation and how the view is, you would have to put a very large tree in there, which Jen, I can't remember exactly the size that he had, but it would take 10 to 15 years before the tree would grow big enough, in my mind, to hide. So I guess I was just here to find out what you guys thought and if you have different recommendations.
No, I didn't think you guys would actually be ready to act on this tonight, but I thought we would put it on the next agenda for some input. And in the meantime, you might want to just take a drive by and see if you think that it warrants any change, and if so, what that might be.
In my binder, I don't have his address, Jen, all that memo.
It's 21 Barnett Road, but I can email that to you. I'm sorry you don't have that.
Yeah, I've never seen anything on this topic.
Right, because all on me, I forgot to put it in your file.
Oh,
So
okay.
it is in your electronic file now on your iPad, but you didn't get it in your paper file. So you weren't missing it. I forgot to do that. So it is in your electronic file. I can send you the paper copies of it and email it to you individually.
Please. Yeah.
But for that reason, I did not expect you to take any action on it tonight, but I wanted to get it out there because Mr. Gattro did bring it up a little while ago, and we've been going back and forth.
Is Mr. Gattro, is he on this, Kyle?
I don't see
No,
it.
I don't see him on the list. Only
Okay.
one my guess.
I would just move it on to the next agenda, just making sure everybody gets a copy and we can go down there and take a look at it ourselves, if that's okay with the rest of the board.
Yeah, I already have it. I have it on my iPad here.
Okay.
So why don't we do that? Is there anything?
Next.
Yeah, is there anything else to be discussed this evening?
That's it.
Yay!
Motion to close the meeting.
We did have a letter, for next meeting, there was a letter that we didn't address.
Which one?
About the large ground mounted solar.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was, since you're not moving forward with the use table, Mr. Fusaro will be relieved because he
Okay.
basically owns the property next to Atlas Box. And you'll recall quite a while ago, a company came in with conceptual plans for that property. And he was very freaking out that we might remove that use just as he got a deal signed with the solar company. So, I mean, he was just talking about, please read his letter, because he was talking about, you know,
Yeah.
why this land isn't good for much else other than that. So,
All right.
Oh, he's good to go. Okay,
motion to close that was Bob.
Yes.
Scott.
Scott,
Bob seconded it.
Second.
thank you. Scott Paul, second by Bob Largis.
Okay, Michael Gagan.
Yes.
Yay. And Bob Large, yes.
Aye.
And Kyle Burgesson.
Kyle Bergson, aye.
Scott Paul.
Yes.
Wally Baker, yes. So that concludes this session of the Sutton Planning Board.
Hallelujah.